afternoon, friends. How are you all doing today? We hope you are all in good condition and please stay safety from this coronavirus disease 19. Today, we would like to present about the news concept and the right to know. Every people must be has a high expectation in getting the information. Is it valid or not? Is it hoax or not? And is the media press is independent or not? Our group consists of 4 members. The first one is Kristina Lestary, Daniyal Muhammad, Duwik Lestari, and the last one, Rafin Widyastama. In the chapter 1, there are 4 sub-chapters. The first one is the growth of the concept will be delivered by Kristina Lestary. The second one is the major purpose of news will be delivered by Daniyal Muhammad. The third subchapter is news responsibility.
Okay, I'm going to explain you about the growth of the concept. In this era, news consists of reports of public affairs, the activities of government, war, law enforcement, and account of pestilence and violence. It means if the activities of individuals were not often reported unless crime, accident, or perhaps royalty was involved. Although information was extremely important to the American press in its infant days, news in the hands of the first professional newsmen was limited in quantity and concept. News in the colonial period was not what we take for granted it is today. We presume that news has certain inherent qualities, that news is fair, that it is current, accurate, concise, balanced, objective. Although the pairs worked hard to win the right to print the news as colonial editors saw it, they were often less than fair about sharing their information with the public. In the next slide, it is about the character of the news. The first, the colonial papers printed reports on political events and public affairs topics of great significance to the limited audience. But the main purpose of the news was not so much to inform as to influence. This limited concept of news did not change much for nearly a century and a half after the printing of public occurrences. In the second, almost all newspapers were dedicated party organs or vehicles for the promotion of special interest and the people whose concern was for the establishment. Okay, it is began in 1830 when the environment had begun to change. More Americans were becoming readers. The advent of free education was beginning to make itself felt. As newspaper advertising revenue began to increase, publishers could envision less dependence on political subsidies and even on sales of their papers to readers. Faster paces and general improvement in printing process meant that in an hour thousands of papers instead of hundreds could be produced. And in In 1833, a young printer in New York, Benjamin H. Day, took advantage of all these changes and improvements to produce America's first successful penny paper, the New York Sun. Day not only put out a low-cost daily in quantity, but also developed a new conception of news. He did not entirely ignore the solid news, the news of politics and government, but he outdone the quantity of it.
The major purpose of news. News came to include not only government, politics, and subjects as literature and the science of agriculture, but also the goings on in the police courts and increasingly the progress of business and industry. In the 30 years after the Civil War, the American press began to change from a political press to a press of information. More and more the purpose of the outstanding newspapers was to print the fact and let the reader think for himself. I took purposes of news from www.sociologygroup.com because I couldn't understand well what is the major purpose of news from the reporting book. Here there are 8 purposes of news. The first one is informing, and then educating, the one guiding, entertaining, interpreting, forming opinions, spreading awareness, and advertising. The first one is informing the audience. News helps in informing people of what is going around them in the world. It covers the entire serious topic that every individual has right to know for the better living. Here topics like politics, business, education, foreign affairs, weather forecast, etc. all are covered. News help us to inform complicated processes in a simple way. The second one is educating. As we discussed above, news is used to inform people. It is also used to educate them on the matter which is directly or indirectly related to them. For instance, there is a happening going on GST in India, but many are not aware of exactly what is it, so news helps us to educate on such topics and how it will affect us and others. Editorials and columns help us to educate ourselves on those topics which we might not acquire easily. The third one is guiding the audience. As we all know now from the above points that it helps people inform and educate, there comes guidance through the news. Once the audience is informed, educated on certain issues, then it helps people in guiding what is right and what is wrong with them. It is a great source of influence on people. Once the audience is influenced and start to follow and believe whatever is said by the news is right, then the mission guidance is achieved. The fourth one is interpreting. People have the tendency to believe written things, as it is believed that anything in written form has more authenticity. Every reporter must keep in mind to collect the information from different sources before conveying it to the audience. Before informing it to the audience, a reporter must go through all the facts required in the story and interpret them accordingly. The facts must be interpreted carefully to influence audience rightly and persuade them in the right direction. A good news means every fact and feature must be looked after keenly and presented in the news appropriately. Next slide. The fifth one is entertaining. People who have little knowledge of news will think it carries only serious topic, but to balance out its serious nature, it tends to also serve as an entertainment source. This news is usually read, heard in the leisure time. It covers that news which is light in nature news on fashion, with reviews, hobby columns, sports news, etc. Entertaining news is gaining a great number of audience as it is attractive in nature. The sixth one is forming opinions. Once the news is published in a newspaper or broadcasted on television, then it acts as the agent of forming opinions. News helps people to build their opinion on the information given by the news. For example, after the incident of 11 September, people were influenced by the media and started to have kind of Islamophobia and starting believing that all Muslims are terrorists. Also, during election, media displays each party in such a way that it creates an image of each party differently and affect people's opinions. One more example would be if repetitively we view one product, we tend to form an opinion about it and then take action according to our opinions. The seventh one is spreading awareness. It helps in spreading awareness regarding what is going on around the world on serious topics, politics, health, business, and other people.
Okay. Now I want to explain about the news responsibility in the 20th century. So, the news responsibility was made in the middle of 20th century by American press, and it established a practical good of news responsibilities, and this news responsibility believe that the press should follow three rules, and the first of all is the press should give its reader the news of genuine significance to their life fairly, completely, and without bias. So it means that the press should give the beneficial to the reader's life completely, not one by one, part by part, but it should completely and without bias. It means that without anything in undercover. And the second one is the press should give readers opportunity to know, understand, and evaluate all facts. So it means that the news is given opportunity to the reader to know about the fact, and the fact can be evaluated by the reader. And then the third one is the press should seek to become strong financially. So this third responsibilities was made to give the press such as a freedom to give the reader fake news. So if the press has a strong financially, they cannot be pressed by anyone else, and they can freely publish the news. But let's see the fact, because sometimes the responsibilities only the responsibilities. The fact that we can see from this 20th century of responsibilities. The first one is the politics treatment could control the news. So, in this era, the treatment by the politician could control the news. And then the second one is news magazine express editorial point of view. So it means that the news magazine only publish editorial point of view, and they only want to attract the reader more. No public no not in effect, but it is only to attract the reader. And then the third one is government control the news. So government can control the news. The press only could publish the goodness of the government, and they cannot publish the fact about sometimes the dark side of the government. And now about the new characteristic of news in the middle 20th century. The first one is stronger emphasis on background. So at this century, the reader started to curious about the background of the news. And then the second one is increased American awareness of the principle of freedom and the right to information. So at this century, the American people also increase their awareness of the freedom, about the freedom and the right to the information.
Now we move to the next subtopic, contributing purposes of news. The newsman, as he fingers through the day's stack of news, deciding what he might publish and what he will publish, has additional purposes in mind. He would like to entertain his audience. He would also like to attract customers to sell papers or magazines, or draw listeners to radio sets or viewers to television screens. These purposes are often closely related, for to entertain the consumer as he reads or listens or watches is to attract him to the medium, and to gain his regular attention is to increase the medium's audience and therefore its financial strength. These secondary purposes are easily abused, and their abuse by some media has led to some bitter criticism of American press and broadcasting. There are many responsible and dignified methods of selecting news to attract audiences, and these methods are used by most papers in America and many broadcasters to gain and hold news consumers. Most media select news because of its importance and relevance for their particular audiences, and most try to present news responsibly. Although separately this media may not be as spectacularly successful as the few representative of the sensational press, as a whole they reach and influence more people. The news medium with the greatest financial security has the greatest independence, because it is most able to resist any individual advertiser's attempt to control or dominate it. Popularly again, to the contrary, one advertiser can seldom dominate or control the newspaper or broadcasting station that has a large audience. Every newsman knows at first hand many tales of attempted pressures that failed. There is some validity in the shop talk that the advertiser needs the newspaper more than the newspaper needs the advertiser. Few newsmen think of themselves as historians, yet newsmen are historians each time they write a story, for their work is often the only permanent record of the lives and events of their communities.
So those all of our presentation from group 1 about the news concept and the right to know. We are sorry if we have many mistakes and human error in presenting this chapter. And thank you very much for your attention. If you have many questions and suggestions, let's discuss it together in this group, so we can learn about the news concept and the right to know better together.